Hey guys, this is Murph, and today's video was a heavily requested one from a lot of you guys in the comments of my previous videos. So today we're going to be covering my UI, all of my add-ons, which is going to include my Plater profile that I use, as well as a lot of the Weakauras that I'm currently using. And I'm also going to be showing you guys some useful macros that you guys might want to implement into your own gameplay as a Frost Mage. So with that said, sit back and enjoy today's video. So before we get into things, I just want to let you guys know that everything that we cover and that I talk about in today's video, I already have linked over in my community Discord server in the Mage discussion channel. So feel free to join the Discord server. I'm going to leave a link to it down below in the description of this video. I would love to have you guys over there, be a part of the community, and you'll be able to grab any of the links to any of the Weakauras, the Plater profile, a lot of my macros that I use, as well as all of my talent import strings for both Mythic Plus and for raiding. So feel free to pop by the Discord and you can grab anything that you see in this video. All right, so let's get into it. As you guys can see, my UI is pretty minimalist and pretty clean. I don't like having a lot of add-ons or Weakauras or UI elements cluttering my screen. I like being able to see the game. I used to use a ton of add-ons back in the day around Warlords of Draenor and Legion. I had Elf UI, I had nameplate scrolling combat text, I had a version of Plater, I had a ton of add-ons, but it was kind of just visual overload. And unfortunately, my old PC, my motherboard died, and I lost all of my add-on settings and profiles. I didn't have the hindsight to back them up back then, so that's something that you guys should think about doing. But ever since then, I've just opted to use the standard Blizzard UI, which is really nice because throughout Dragonflight and Into the War Within, they've been making a lot of updates to just the base UI in the game. These days, the standard Blizzard UI is actually fairly customizable. If you guys hit escape and you click on edit mode here in the game menu, you are going to be able to customize, move around, reposition, and resize any UI element here that you want. So as you guys can see, for instance, I've moved my player frame and my target frame closer to the middle of my screen, so I'm not having to look up in the top left corner to immediately see my health percentage and my health amount or my mana as a healer. So I like to move those closer into the middle of the screen. I have my action bars set up to stack on top of each other because this reminds me of an old add-on that I used to use called Bartender, which I still do use when I'm playing classic WoW. It's just a clean look, having everything right in the middle of your screen. So again, you can come in here and kind of customize everything here to your liking. Inside of the edit mode, one option that I would highly recommend that you enable is this show grid option here. What this is going to do is it's going to enable a resizable grid that will cover your entire screen. You can make it as big or as small as you'd like. And this just makes it really easy to perfectly align your UI elements so that things aren't just a little off center and you can get things exactly how you want them. We can also save loadouts, so we can use the same UI loadout across characters. So as you guys can see up here, this is my main loadout. I just have it named after my main character. But you guys can see I have a raid healing loadout, I have a Mythic Plus healing loadout, and I have a loadout that I use when I am on my laptop and I'm not able to play on my PC since the dimensions of the screens are a little bit different. So what you can do is you can come in here, you can save new loadouts so that if you have everything exactly how you want it on one character and you get on an alt or you make a new character, you can quickly come in here and set the loadout to be identical to your main character. So I had quite a few comments asking me how I track my Death's Chill and my Excess Frost and Excess Fire stacks. So while we're at a training dummy, let me show you guys where you can see these on my screen. So if I start hitting a target dummy and I generate an Excess Fire stack, as you guys can see right here in the middle of my screen, if I consume that, you guys are going to see it changes to Excess Frost. You can also see my Death's Chill stacks here when I have Icy Veins going. And I actually just use the in-game Blizzard UI to track these elements. The way that I do this is by going into the options menu here. There is a new option setting here called Gameplay Enhancements. And if you go ahead and click on this, if you enable the Cooldown Manager, what this is going to do is enable buff tracking, defensive tracking, and cooldown tracking. So I use this, and when I enable this, I go into the edit mode, and I disable all the other UI elements that are associated with this option, except for this one here called Tracked Buffs. As you guys can see here, it's going to track my Death's Chill, my Frostfire Empowerment, my Excess Fire, and my Excess Frost. And I've repositioned it. I made it a little bit smaller and I put it right above my cast bar, right in the center of my screen. So it's really easy for me to see at a glance. And again, you guys can come in here and make it bigger or smaller, put it wherever you want on your screen. But again, The utility cooldowns, the essential cooldowns, all of that, I disabled these in the edit mode because I don't need these on my screen. I just need the important track buffs to be right in the center of my screen so that I can see them, and I'm not having to look up at my buffs in the right hand corner of my screen to see how many stacks I have or what procs I have. Now let's get into my add-ons that I use. So let's just start at the top of the list. So first up, we have BasicMinimap. So BasicMinimap, as you guys can tell up here in the top right-hand corner of my screen, is just a visual update over the base Blizzard UI minimap, which I personally think is a little bit dated these days. So I think BasicMinimap is just a cleaner look, and it allows me to see more of my minimap at a glance. So I recommend this add-on if you guys are kind of tired of how the normal minimap looks. Next up, we have BigWigs and LittleWigs, which are going to be used for my boss timers and my ability alerts. That is very similar to Deadly Boss mods. I used Deadly Boss mods for probably over 15 years, but I had always heard really good things about BigWigs and LittleWigs. I had never given them a shot though up until recently, and now that I've made the switch, I do think that I prefer BigWigs and LittleWigs over DBM. I feel like the audio cues are a lot cleaner and they're not so overwhelming with the audio overstimulation that DBM can provide. However, I feel like this is a personal preference choice between BigWigs and DBM. You can go in and heavily customize them to get them to be exactly how you want, and you can import voice packs, all that, to have your audio cues be exactly as you want them. But these days, I personally think that BigWigs and LittleWigs are the cleaner choice. But again, complete personal preference here. Use whichever one you like more. And next up, we have Details Damage Meter. Now, I think Details is probably the best damage meter that you can get currently, at least until Blizzard implements their in-game DPS meter coming with Midnight. But I highly recommend that every single player, regardless of role, installs Details Damage Meter, because it's not only going to let you gauge your personal performance against other players in your party or in your raid, but you can go ahead and open Details and get a complete breakdown of all of your spells throughout the course of an entire dungeon or boss fight. If we take a look at this current damage breakdown that I have displaying in my details down here in the bottom right, this was from a plus 15 Ecodome Aldani key that I had run yesterday. And if we click on my character's name, you will be able to see an entire breakdown of every single spell that I cast throughout the entire dungeon. And we can see exactly how much damage each individual spell contributed to our overall. What we can also do, if I click on Glacial Spike, as you guys can see over here, it's going to tell us how many times we cast each individual spell. You guys can see how many times it was a normal hit and how many times it was a critical hit. You can also see what your average hit was, and you can see what your maximum hit and your maximum crit were. So this is a great way to come in here and at very quick glance, see exactly how much each individual spell was contributing to your overall damage. Inside of Details, you can also hover over this little circular icon that is right next to the icon of each spell, and it's going to give you a breakdown of how much damage each spell did to a particular enemy throughout the course of a dungeon, so you can get a breakdown of how much damage you did to each individual enemy as well. Not only can you look at a damage breakdown via Details, you can also look at healing done. So we could see our healers breakdown throughout the course of a dungeon. We could take a look at our tanks self-healing as well. Not only that, you can look at things like interrupts. So you can see who was kicking and who wasn't, how many times each person got a successful kickoff, and you can see exactly what spells they were kicking. We can also look at some very important information through Details like deaths throughout a dungeon. So I apparently did die during this dungeon. It looks like I was meleeed by a random mob. Looks like I got one shot. As you guys can see, I was at 100% health and I got hit for about 14 or 15 million health and I died instantly. So this is a great way to come in and see why people are dying. If you don't know what killed somebody, if you want to know if the tank maybe lost aggro, which may have happened here, I can't quite remember. This is a great tool to come in and get a breakdown to kind of figure out what went wrong. Next up, I have Simulationcraft. So Simulationcraft is the add-on that you want to install to be able to sim your character on raidbots.com. Now, the way that Simulationcraft works is when you have this add-on installed, you will type /simc into your chat window. This is going to pull up an entire string of text, which is going to contain all of your character's information, which includes your race, your class, your spec, all the gear in your bags, everything. And you want to Control-C to copy the string of text. and then you're going to want to import this text into raidbots.com. Now, I'm not going to cover everything in regards to how to properly sim your character today because this video would be an hour long, but essentially when you copy your import string, what you can do here is you can go into the top gear section to figure out what gear is the absolute best gear that your character currently has on or in your bags or in your Great Vault. You can also use the Droptimizer to run a sim to figure out what items would drop from certain content that would be the biggest upgrade for your character. So that would be things like heroic raid loot, mythic raid loot, mythic plus 10 drops, vault drops. So for example, if I go in here and I click on top gear, up here at the top, if I am to import my character's import string, it's going to load my entire character's loadout. So all of my talents, my hero talent, all of my gear. And what you can do is you can come down here and you can mix and match different pieces of gear. And so what this will do, let's say I don't know which necklace is the best one for me. If I'm to click on another necklace, and then if I scroll down and click on a belt, or if I'm to click on a different ring, for example, or a trinket, I can mix and match and add a bunch of different things in here. And what this is going to do is when I am ready to run the sim, I can scroll all the way down after I've selected everything that I want, including my enchants, my gems, all of that. I can scroll down and start the sim, and what this is going to do is run a bunch of simulations on my character with all the different gear combinations that we selected, and when the sim is over, it's going to tell you which gear is the best gear for you to equip on your character. So as you can see, we currently have the sim running here. This does take a little while, especially depending on how many combinations of gear that you're having the sim run. The more pieces of gear that you select, the longer this will take. But do keep in mind that Raidbots sometimes does have a lot of heavy traffic, particularly on Tuesdays when everyone is opening their Great Vaults and trying to figure out what their biggest upgrades are. You sometimes can get put in a queue of a couple hundred people, so it does take a while. You can opt to pay for Raidbots Premium, which is what I do. It's about $3 a month, but it lets you skip the queue and it gives you a much larger combination of items that you can sim all together at one time, because there is a limit. You might have to run multiple sims because you will reach the iteration limit and you won't be able to sim every single piece of gear that your character has in one go. All right, and with the sim complete, as we can see, I kind of just picked random pieces of gear, but it does turn out that it looks like I do have a belt that's sitting in my inventory that might be a DPS increase over here. But once the sim is done, if you scroll down a little bit, the sim is going to show you the exact combination of items that will give you a DPS increase or a DPS decrease. So as you can see in my current gear, with my current Dungeon Slice sim, I'm doing about 6.6 million damage. If I am to replace my belt, you can see that I'll gain about 13,500 DPS over what I'm currently wearing. So using Simulationcraft and coming over into Raidbots is probably your best way to figure out what your biggest upgrades are and what pieces of gear might be sitting in your bags that you might not know are DPS increases, like this belt that I apparently have sitting on my mage right now. Next up, we have Mythic Dungeon Tools. Now, I feel like this is a pretty essential add-on to install if you want to take Mythic Plus seriously in any real capacity. So what this add-on does is it's going to give you a layout of all 8 dungeons in the current season, and it's going to show you every single enemy throughout the course of the dungeon. This is great because you can create your own routes and you can link routes to your party before a key starts so that everyone can be on the same page as to what enemies you plan on pulling and the route that you plan on doing throughout the course of the dungeon. So if we take Halls of Atonement, for example, if I want to make my own route and indicate to my party what we want to pull for pull number 1, for instance, what I can do is I can select all the packs of enemies that I plan on doing in the first pull, and we can chain them all together. And as you guys can see here, they're linked now in pull number 1. If I wanted to add an additional pull, I can create pull number 2, and then we can chain all these enemies together if we would like to and indicate, hey, this is pull number 2. One good thing as well is as you're adding enemies into these pulls, what you'll notice is in this bar right here, it's going to indicate the percentage of trash that you need throughout the entire dungeon. So you can route around every individual mob to try and get as close to 100% trash as you possibly can, because there's no real need to go beyond 100%. So you want to try and hit that exactly if you can. Another thing that we can do here is we can add notes onto our routes. So for instance, if I wanted to indicate to my group that on pull number 1, we want to use Bloodlust, I can come over here and I can insert a note. I can pop it down right next to pull number 1, and we can add text to it and just say lust. So this is going to be where we want to use our first Bloodlust. Now, when I link the route to somebody, if you hover over note number 1, you'll see that we want to use lust here. And I can drop notes to indicate where we want to do lust number 2, lust number 3, or if there's just a certain trash pack that we want to skip, you know, I can indicate that way that we want to skip it. So let's say I don't feel like making my own route. If somebody links me a route on MDT, the add-on is going to save that route for future reference. So if we come up here, I can look at any previous route that any of my tanks have sent me, and we can take a look at one of them. Let's take a look at default 3. So this is going to be a route that a tank linked me during some Halls of Atonement run that I ran in the past. But as you guys can see, you know, they have all of the trash packs in order of how we want to pull them and which mobs we want to pull. He's indicating where we want to use Bloodlust and also indicating where we want to skip mobs. So this is a fantastic add-on to get so that, like I mentioned, everyone's on the same page before the dungeon even starts. One last thing that I'd like to mention about MDT that I love about this add-on is if you are ever unsure about what a mob does or what a specific ability does, you can come in here and click on any enemy and get information about them, including their health and exactly what spells they're going to be casting. So if we take a look at this Depraved Houndmaster, for instance, if I right click on them and I open the enemy info, it's going to show me a complete breakdown of this mob. As you guys can see, it's going to just randomly shoot at targets. But more importantly, this mob casts Loyal Beasts, which reads, increases the attack speed of vicious gargons within 40 yards by 200% and grants them immunity to crowd control effects. So again, if you know that you need to interrupt Loyal Beasts, but you don't know exactly what the ability even does, you can come in here and get a complete breakdown of every single ability and every single boss ability that is going to be happening throughout the course of a dungeon. Up next, let's talk about Plater. So Plater is a nameplate add-on that is probably one of the most useful add-ons that you could possibly use for Mythic plus dungeons. The reason for this is because the basic Blizzard nameplates that appear above enemies' heads are all identical, no matter what kind of mob you're fighting or if it's a boss. They're all just red bars and they don't have any differential between the kind of enemy that you're fighting. Now, Blizzard is going to be updating nameplates in midnight, but right now I highly recommend that you get Plater. There are hundreds of Plater profiles out there that you can download and test out to try and find one that works best for you. The Plater profile that I use is a profile created by a fellow content creator named Vesperal TV. I highly recommend you guys go check out his channel, drop him a follow. He makes great content, but his Plater profile is one of the more clean ones that I've been able to find. I like, again, as I mentioned at the start of the video, keeping my UI minimalist and clean. And a lot of Plater profiles that I've tried have had an overwhelming amount of information on each individual nameplate, which when you're in a huge AoE pool with 20 plus nameplates, it can kind of be a visual overload and a little too much. So this Plater profile is incredibly good because it color codes casters, it color codes priority mobs, and it color codes enemies that have abilities that you need to either stun or stop. So I'm going to pull up a video of an Icicles run that I ran the other night so I can give you guys a breakdown of what the Plater profile looks like. So going into this poll on Icicles, this is a great poll to demonstrate what Plater is going to look like. So as you guys can see, my nameplates are color coded and each color is going to indicate a certain thing. So as you can see right now, I'm targeting this Web Mage. The pink nameplate is going to indicate that this mob has an ability that you should try and interrupt. Now, the Web Mages, they do a couple of different spells, as you can see there. It's also going to show who interrupted the cast, so you know who used their kick. So pink, again, is going to indicate that the mobs are casting spells that you're going to want to try and interrupt. Green is going to indicate mobs that kind of just wail on the tank, that don't really have any crazy abilities that you really need to watch out for. They're just kind of regular mobs that are just going to be auto-attacking or just doing basic abilities. Next up, we have the Bloodguard, which you can see is in a purple nameplate. What purple indicates is this is a priority mob, or it's a mob that just has a lot more health than the surrounding enemies. So if you are trying to figure out which mob you should be focusing your damage into in an AoE pool, the purple nameplate is going to be the indicator for that. And so the last color for nameplates in this Plater profile that we need to be aware of is this light blue nameplate, as you guys can see displayed here on these stag shells. So light blue is going to indicate that these mobs have an ability that needs to be stopped. As you guys are probably aware, stag shells cast Alarm Shrill, and it's really all they do. They're just going to chain cast it. And if this ability goes off, they're going to summon a hulking Bloodguard, which are the big beetle guys that do a ton of AoE damage. They have a lot of health, and they have an aura that reduces the damage that nearby enemies take by 50%. So they're very inefficient and they take a really long time to kill. So, Alarm Shrill is a spell that is necessary to stop at all costs. Here on the cast bar, there is a little stop sign while the cast is going through that is just basically telling you, hey, you need to stop this by any means necessary. So, a stun, a knock up, a knock back, a disorient. Use anything that you can to prevent this mob from getting this cast off. So, again, blue is going to indicate that you need to stop a very important ability. Up next, we have TrufiGCD. Now, this was a heavily requested one in my early videos where people wanted to have more visual clarity to help follow along with what spells that I'm pressing when I'm in a dungeon. So what this add-on does is, again, it's a global cooldown tracker. If you guys watch above my details damage meter, this is where I have my GCD tracker located, and it is going to display an icon just showing what spell I had just cast. So it's just for visual clarity for my content, for my stream, and for my YouTube videos. But it does look really clean, and there are other GCD trackers, but again, I like to keep things minimalist, so having the icons show up works out great for me. Last but not least, let's discuss some Weakauras that I use as a Frost Mage. So Weakauras are additional UI elements that you can either create or you can import into your game to help with the visual clarity so that you guys can help track buffs and trinkets and procs a little bit easier than what the Blizzard UI allows us to do. So let's start out with my Alter Time Weakaura. So this is Alter Time with Snapshot at HP. So as you guys will be able to see, right above my character's health bar, I have an Alter Time Weakaura, which is going to track the duration remaining on Alter Time, so I know when it's going to pull me back if I don't reactivate it. But this is also going to track my health percentage that I was at when I first activated Alter Time. This text is going to be in green, indicating that when I Alter Time back, I will be gaining health. Or the text will be in red, indicating that if I Alter Time back, I will be losing health. So as a quick demonstration, as you guys can see, I'm sitting at about 50% HP. If I'm to use Alter Time right now, as you guys will notice, my Alter Time health percentage is going to be in the red, indicating that if I Alter Time back right now, I am going to be losing health. So if I reactivate Alter Time, as you can see, I just lost a bunch of HP. So when this happens, I would recommend that you guys set up an Alter Time cancel aura macro, which when you press will completely get rid of your Alter Time buff, so that if you decide that you do not want to be pulled back via Alter Time, you can hit your cancel aura macro and it will clear your Alter Time without you having to try and find the buff and try and click it off, or through any other means. It's probably the easiest way to go about canceling Alter Time, so definitely think about using this Weakaura. Next up, I have a pretty standard Icicles tracker that I have positioned directly in the middle of my screen, right below my character, so that at any given moment, I know exactly how many Icicles I have. I'll know if I need to use a flurry or if I'm ready to glacial spike just by looking down here at this bar right below my character. I have this Weakaura set to only load when I'm in combat. So as you guys can see, if I close out of my Weakaura, since I'm not in combat, you can't see my Icicles tracker. But if I start hitting something, you guys will see the Weakaura pops up. And again, I'm very easily able to track how many Icicles I have, so I know exactly at what moment I need to use Glacial Spike or Ice Lance or Brain Freeze to generate Icicles. Great Weakaura. I highly recommend that you guys get this one. Up next, I have a Weakaura called Smart Winter's Chill, which is going to track my current Winter's Chill stacks on my primary target. I have this set up to display as two snowflakes that are going to appear right above my Icicles tracker so that I can track my Icicles and my current Winter's Chill stacks very easily. They're right in the exact same place directly in the middle of my screen. This Weakaura you can also customize to either be an icon that just shows you your current stacks of Winter's Chill, or if you like, there is a bar loadout that you can also select if you think that looks better. So what this Weakaura is also going to do is change the color of the snowflakes on my screen depending on whether or not I have Fingers of Frost stacks. The reason for this is, back in the day, if you had Winter's Chill on a target and you used a Fingers of Frost empowered Ice Lance, that Ice Lance would consume a stack of Winter's Chill. So you would be essentially losing out on a Fingers of Frost proc because it is going to be hitting Winter's Chill and the target is already frozen, so you're kind of wasting a proc. They made a change recently where if you use a Fingers of Frost empowered Ice Lance into a target with Winter's Chill, that Fingers of Frost is no longer going to consume one of your Winter's Chill stacks. So when I start hitting this target dummy, as you'll see, I can put up Winter's Chill. I have one stack of Fingers of Frost, so my snowflakes are going to be blue and the inside is going to be lit up white. And what that indicates is that I have Fingers of Frost. So if I use my Fingers of Frost proc, you can see the color of the snowflake changed, indicating that I now no longer have a Fingers of Frost. Another cool thing about this Weakaura is that the color of the snowflakes is also going to indicate when your flurry is in midair, and it will change color once it finally hits the target. So if I get in combat real quick, when I shoot off a flurry here, as you'll see, my snowflake indicator for Winter's Chill is kind of dim until the flurry actually hits the target, and then the snowflakes will light up. So I know the exact travel time of my flurry. Now, all of these Weakauras are highly customizable. You can change the positioning, you can change the size, you can even change the spacing of the icons on your screen. All you would need to do is go into the display tab of the Weakaura and scroll down until you find the texture related to whatever loadout of this Weakaura you decide to use. So either the snowflakes, the icon, or the bar texture. And you can come in here and you can change the spacing and the size and all of that and the color of any of these individual textures here on this Weakaura. Lastly, I have a Weakaura called Ultimate Mouse Cursor. And what this does is it is going to put a circle around my cursor so I don't lose where my cursor is on my screen, because it is very easy in a big Mythic Plus pull or just in a raid fight to lose track of where your cursor is on your screen. And this is particularly important if you use @cursor location macros for things like our Blizzard. So as you guys will see here, I have a circle around my cursor, so I don't really lose track of where it is on my screen. I can very easily see, even out of my peripheral vision, where on my screen my cursor is at any given time. And this is really important because, like I said, I use an @cursor location macro for my Blizzard, and I want to make sure that I'm not misplacing this or putting it in a wrong spot if my cursor is lost somewhere on my screen. So as you guys can see, I know exactly where my cursor is at any given time, so I can just hover it over this training dummy, even if I'm not targeting it, and I can cast a Blizzard right at the location of where my mouse cursor was. So I really highly recommend that you guys get a Weakaura or some sort of add-on that is going to help you track where your cursor is just a little bit better. One last thing about the Ultimate Mouse Cursor, as you guys will notice, when I cast a spell, I have it configured so the inner circle is going to display my current cast time. You can also set this up to display the global cooldown in between your spells, but if I'm to cast a Blizzard here at this target dummy, what you'll notice, again, in the inner circle of my Weakaura, you'll see the cast time of my Blizzard spell, so I know exactly when it's going to complete without having to look at my cast bar down below. Now, let's discuss some useful macros that we can use as a Frost Mage. So let's start with my @cursor Blizzard macro. What this is going to do is wherever my cursor is hovering, at least if it's in range, if I press Blizzard, it's going to automatically cast it wherever my cursor is. The reason this is important is because it makes casting Blizzard a lot more efficient. If I'm to cast Blizzard normally, you have to initiate the spell cast. You have to then target this green reticle where you want it to go, and then click again to indicate that you want Blizzard to be cast there. So this macro is just going to make it wherever your cursor is at, you press Blizzard and it will immediately start casting there with no delay. Again, like we mentioned in the Weakauras, you want to have something that is going to track where your cursor is at all times on your screen, because you don't want to misplace your Blizzard or miss it. And it's very important to hit Blizzard because Blizzard is going to be giving us cooldown reduction on our Frozen Orb. So we want Blizzard to be placed perfectly, hitting as many mobs as possible, so we get as much cooldown reduction as we possibly can get. So again, anywhere that my mouse is hovering on my screen, if I hit Blizzard, it's going to drop a Blizzard in that exact location. Next up, I have a cancel aura macro for my alter time. Now, we kind of discussed this in the Weakaura section of this video, but the reason you want to have one of these is because if you decide for whatever reason that you do not want to be pulled back for alter time, either if you're about to lose a lot of health, or if you think that your alter time is about to pull you back into a dangerous mechanic or into a position that you don't want to be in, you want to be able to cancel your alter time. Now, the only real way to do this without a macro is to find your alter time buff in the top right corner of your screen or wherever you have your buffs located and try and click it off. And that is very inefficient, and it is distracting, looking away from the center of your screen, and could lead you to getting killed or messing something up. So what a cancel aura does is if I use alter time, and if we wait a couple of seconds, you know, I'm losing health or whatever, or I'm in a bad position and I don't want to alter time back, if I hit my alter time cancel aura macro, it is going to clear my alter time buff so that I do not get pulled back. I highly recommend that you guys set one of these up and get used to pressing it. Next, I have an Icy Veins cooldown macro that essentially just combines a bunch of different things into one. What this does is it is going to show the tooltip of Icy Veins. So when I have it on my bars, it is just going to display the Icy Veins tooltip as if I just had it normally on my action bars. But what this does is it is going to use a tempered potion if I have them. It is going to cast Icy Veins. What you can also do is add in trinkets if you have unused trinkets that line up with your cooldowns. You can also add in racial abilities into this macro so that instead of having to hit 3 or 4 different buttons, you can press one macro button and it is going to activate all of these at the same time. So as you guys will see here, when I hit my Icy Veins, it is going to activate a tempered potion and use Icy Veins at the exact same time, all in one button press. So this final macro is a very niche use case because we don't normally take Ice Block these days in Mythic Plus. We normally use Ice Cold as a major defensive. However, if you're ever using Ice Block, it is nice to have a cancel aura macro set up in your Ice Block button because sometimes we'll get a very, very dangerous debuff that we want to use Ice Block to get rid of. And when you use Ice Block normally, there's about a second that you have to wait before you can press Ice Block again to pull you out of Ice Block because you have to wait for the global cooldown to come back up before you can press it again for your Ice Block to disappear. So if you want to use Ice Block to very quickly get rid of a debuff or to very quickly soak a mechanic, I would highly recommend that you get a Cancel Aura Ice Block macro as well as a stop casting macro. So if you're in the middle of a spell cast and you press Ice Block, it will instantly cancel your spell cast and cast Ice Block so that you don't have to wait for your spell to finish casting before your Ice Block goes through. So what this is going to look like is if I press Ice Block and then I immediately press my Ice Block button again, my Ice Block is going to instantly clear itself. So as you can see, I'm going to Ice Block, I'll press it again, and I'm immediately out of my Ice Block with no delay. This is, again, really useful if you have a really deadly debuff on you or something that you just want to get rid of really quickly. Highly recommend that you get used to using a Ice Block cancel or a macro. I will preface that by saying you need to be careful because if you press this button multiple times back to back, like I said, it will instantly cancel your Ice Block, and sometimes you don't want that. So if you do set this macro up, just be aware that you do not want to spam your Ice Block button to accidentally cancel your Ice Block early if you don't want. All right, guys, that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. As I mentioned at the start of the video, everything that we talked about today, including macros, add-ons, Weakauras, Plater profile, and even my talent import strings from Mythic Plus and Raid are already linked in my community Discord in the Mage discussion channel. So I'm going to leave a link to that down in the description below. I would love it if you guys clicked on the link, joined the Discord, became a part of the community, interacted with me and everyone else who is already over there. But I hope that everything here is helpful and that you guys are able to implement some of the stuff that we discussed into your own gameplay. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.